Okay, Mr. President, we are positive on getting it right.
Yes.
Ultimately, it's about making sure that we have students that are well-baked for the job market.
Absolutely.
For, the world out there. We have lots of skills today. We have lots of experience, but not fully utilized. What are you doing to make sure that then, after all said and done, these skills, this experience will be utilized for economic growth?
3 things. Number 1, we have to drive our industrialization and manufacturing, value addition, agro-processing.
What do you do to the power purchase agreements and the independent power producers? Because according to the task force report, it was talking about the power cost for the financial year 2020, it was 87 billion shillings, which is 66% of the sales. They went ahead to say that, yes, the Kenyan was contributing about 72% of the power, but the resources that they were taking is about 48%. For the independent power producers, they are giving Kenya Power about 25% of power, but they're taking away about of the payments. So how do you deal with that even as you go to the different transmission lines? Precisely.
First, the turbine we are retiring in Moroni belongs to government. It's a Kenyan turbine. So that we will have no conversation. We will just retire.
That is injustice, that is impunity, that is corruption. What then will your government do to make sure that they get to the bottom of this? Or do we just let it go?
Let me tell you, because the most important thing that has happened is that I have stopped the hemorrhage of public funds this year.
How is that going to happen, Mr. President? Because when it comes to increasing the tax base and cutting spending on borrowing, then the country's business environment must be different. Something must change in the country's business environment. What are the administration's plans to improve the ease of doing business, which essentially will see a broadening of the country's tax base?
This forward.
Mr. President, now that you have engaged us on public debt, I have 2 questions. The first question is, out of our collection currently, about 65% goes to the payment of debt. Now, the dollar, what we do, increasingly, your government has been seen to be facing the West more than the East. You'll have to go renegotiate with China. Now, if this happens, what is your plan? Because Ghana has defaulted, we are categorized in the same frame.
First, Ken, you're telling me your country, good relationship with the West.
Mr. President, would you look at that camera and admit to Kenyans that SGR was a haste? Mombasa, Nairobi was a haste.
What do you mean was a haste?
It's been now documented that it's theft of public funds, funding that SGR.
No, I cannot, I cannot say what is not absolutely.
Mr. President, you mentioned something, because you're now focusing on the pre-election pledges that you've been implementing, and you started with the Hustler Fund, and I listened to you in the Swahili episode, and you spoke about some 20 billion shillings has been borrowed so far. The figures we have from the ministry so far, as of today, are 12.8. I don't know how you account for that difference, but also secondly, we know that the regulations that are prepared by the National Treasury and approved by Parliament that, yes, money shall be appropriated by the House, but also there shall be a board to manage it. There will be a secretariat to manage it. Who is managing this fund today?
On the figures, I have so many figures, by virtue of my position, I did.
But how inclusive is the program, Mr. President, with the digitization and technology? We're speaking of more than 40 million Kenyans. In the first week of the Hustler Fund, more than 50% of those who borrowed were from Nairobi County. How inclusive nationally is the Hustler Fund?
For your information, your statistics are not right. You should look at the current spread of Hustler Fund. It is